How many games will the Minnesota Vikings win in 2025? What's going on, Skull Nation, as we call Vikings fans? What's going on, Vikings fans? It's time to predict the Minnesota Vikings 2025 record prediction for the NFL 2025 season. We're going to get things started here. I'm going to give you my game analysis to see which games I think the Vikings will win and which games I think the Vikings will lose. So before I give you my record prediction for the Minnesota Vikings for 2025 NFL season, don't forget to put a thumbs up to like the video, subscribe to my channel for more options, and comment down in your opinion below to see how far in the Vikings will be. Do you think they'll make the playoffs again? Do you think they can win division, or you think they miss out on the playoffs? Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. Okay, so we're gonna get started here. Before we get started here, the Vikings are in a new area with a new quarterback in JJ McCarthy, who I'm not a huge believer in. Now, I know a lot of people are calling him overrated because, he carried Michigan, you know, to the Super Bowl, to the championship, which, yeah. But the question is, can JJ be a stud at quarterback? We don't know. We're going to, find out and see. So let's get to the predictions. So week 1, they play against Chicago Bears on that Monday night in Chicago. This game's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And this game right here, I feel like can go either way. Now, most people are probably going to say the Vikings are going to win because the Vikings could be the more well-rounded team than the Bears. But I'm actually going to go with the Bears here because I just think the Bears, they're at home in this game. And, playing Chicago could be trickier to play. And I just think the Bears, pretty much got the more experienced quarterback in Caleb because he's entering year 2. We don't know what Caleb Williams is going to look like in year 2, and we don't know what JJ McCarthy is going to look like. So, yeah. And also on top of that, I think the Bears, their offensive line is much improved, and their defense is solid, which I think they can find a way to get after JJ, made life difficult on them. And I feel like the Bears do have, the corners to at least match up well the Vikings receivers. So yeah, I just really think that their defense, can get after JJ McCarthy and make him uncomfortable. I just feel like they'll do a good job stopping the run game of the Vikings. And I just really think that the Bears, at home, with the tough atmosphere, is going to be it's gonna go crazy. So basically, I think the Bears will win this game, and because I feel like Ben Johnson has done a really good job, and he's found a formula to attack Brian Flores, and I feel like he'll do that in Chicago. So yeah, I think the Bears will win this first matchup. Week 2 against the Atlanta Falcons, I think they'll bounce back and beat the Falcons because I just don't think the Falcons are going to be a good team this year. Their offensive line is good. I mean, they can run the ball, but their defense is a little sketchy. So yeah, so their defense is sketchy. So basically, I think that's gonna allow Minnesota's offensively to move the ball, stay balanced, and JJ McCarthy could have a lot of time, getting his guys open on certain routes. So yeah, and I just don't really think the Falcons do have the coaching edge. I think the Vikings do, especially on defense. And I feel like Brian Flores would do a really good job, getting after Penix and making life difficult on him and force him to panic under pressure. Because I just don't think the Falcons offense are going to be able to move the ball, especially against the Vikings defense, which that keeps, the Falcons offense on their toes. So basically, I think, I'm not too worried about your secondary. So as long as you can crowd the box and stop the run, then you should be fine. So yeah. And also on top of that, the games in Minnesota, Minnesota they're just a much more talented team. And they're at home, whereas Minnesota is a tough place to play at and is because of the atmosphere and all that. And they got the better coaching staff. So yeah, I think the Vikings will win that game for sure. Week 3 against the Cincinnati Bengals. This is another game that can go either way, but I'm leaning towards the Vikings to win that game because I just think the Vikings, defense can at least like get after Joe Burrow and make life difficult on them because the Bengals offensive line is good. Yeah, they got good receivers, but I think those. I know the Vikings will have the corners to match up well with them, but I think I feel like the Bengals could totally win a shootout though, but I feel like if their offense can at least pick up some blitz packages from the Vikings, and then they find a way to get after that secondary, I think they'll find a way to win that game. But I just have a feeling that the Vikings, with their defense, I just think the defense will probably give, Joe Burrow and that Bengals offense some issues. Because, the Vikings have one of the best run defenses in football. The Bengals, their defense, I don't think is going to be up to the task. So I think J.J. McCarthy, with the Vikings, I think they can move the ball on the Vikings, run the ball on them, throw the ball on the Vikings. They can run the ball on the Bengals. They can at least throw the ball on the Bengals, which keeps the Bengals defense on their heels. So basically, J.J. McCarthy, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson will be a problem. So yeah. So basically, I think the Vikings will win that game at home, but I would not be shocked if the Bengals won because the Bengals had the better quarterback and they're the more complete team. But so yeah, I think the Vikings will win that game. Next game, week 4 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, I think the Steelers will win that game because the Steelers are at home and they got the better quarterback. And I just really think that, the Steelers defense is probably going to give JJ and that Vikings offensive line some fits. Because I think, the Steelers pass rush is really good. And I feel like that, the defense, I mean, JJ on the road, especially him against that good of a defense like Pittsburgh, is totally a Steelers advantage because Mike Tomlin does a really good job, of confusing young quarterbacks and all that. So yeah, and I think the Steelers do have good corners though, which I think they can match up well with the Vikings receivers. So as long as their defense don't really give up big plays to JJ, Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, they should be fine in that area. So yeah, but I feel like offensively, even if they can't really get their offense going, even if the Steelers can't get their offense going, I still think that they'll still find a way to win, and their defense will find a way to make some stops. But maybe the Steelers, offense could totally have some problems moving the ball because Brian Flores is very aggressive of blitzing and all that. So yeah, I think the Steelers can really, really get after that Vikings secondary a little bit. So yeah, but I feel like that both offenses might be struggling to get things going because of travel and all that. Because the games in Ireland, where that's a far travel and that's out of the United States. So yeah. So basically, I think the Steelers will win that game at home. Next game, week 5 against the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, against the Cleveland Browns. I actually got the Vikings beating the Browns because I know the Browns do have a really good defense. Maybe they can give the Vikings offense problems, but they're probably gonna be worn out on how bad their offense will be because I don't know who's playing quarterback for the Browns. Is it gonna be Shador Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett? I don't really know. If it's a rookie, I wouldn't really trust him against that good of a defense like the Vikings. And I feel like Brian Flores, you know, can be very capable of being aggressive of how to at least confuse a young quarterbacks and making life difficult on them. Because I don't think the Browns' offensive line is as good as it used to be. I think the Vikings' defense will take advantage of that. And I feel like even though the Browns do have good corners in the secondary, I still think, the Vikings offense can, like, with their weaponry, I think they'll find a way to, like, make some plays and all that. And the Vikings do have a better offensive line as well, which I think they can stalemate the Browns pass rush to keep the Browns defense off balance. So basically, I know the game's in Cleveland, but because wait a second, is a game in Cleveland? I don't know. Let's see. Because actually, it's out in the country. So the Vikings do stay, because I don't know. Let me look. So they're going to London and playing the Browns, but I think they will beat the Browns because, you know, the Vikings are just a way much more better team, and they're more stable at the quarterback position. And I think the Vikings have a better coaching staff. Maybe the coaches are even, maybe, yeah. But I think the Vikings find a way to win this game, but I think this game will be close, though. So then they get the bye week 6. Then after the bye week, they got to play at home against the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, for some reason, I think the Vikings are going to win that game. And the reason for it is that I just really think that, Brian Flores really has a recipe to, like, get after Jalen Hurts and, like, force him to be under pressure. And I think he'll find a formula to at least slow down Saquon Barkley and contain Jalen Hurts and all that. So yeah. So as long as your defense don't give up big plays to AJ Brown and Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert, I mean they should be fine. And as long as if they can stop the run of the Eagles, I think they should be fine. And I feel like the Vikings can be a little explosive on offense. And I think JJ can do enough to at least, like, throw the ball through the air, and against the Eagles' young secondary, which I think the Vikings offense can make some plays because now they have a strong offensive line that can stalemate the Eagles' pass rush. So yeah. So I would not be shocked if Philly won, and I wouldn't rule out the Eagles winning because I feel like the Eagles are a better team from a talent standpoint, and they have a better quarterback. But I just feel like, the Vikings at home will find a way to at least, like, win the game by themselves, especially with their defense, coming to play here. So I think the Vikings will win that game. Then week 8 against the Los Angeles Chargers on a Thursday. Um, Obviously this is on a short week in LA. I think the Chargers will win that game because I think the Chargers, playing LA is difficult, and I just think, Justin Herbert, he's a better quarterback than JJ. I think they're a much more better team than the Vikings. And also, you guys have a better receiving core and have a better defense than the Chargers. So, yeah, but I feel like, the only way that the Vikings can win this game is that their defense can really force a bad game from Justin Herbert. And I think that if Brian Flores finds a way to at least, like, get after Herbert and all that, I think there's a chance the Chargers win that game. And especially the Chargers at home do have a great defense, but it's okay, but not great. But I'm not too worried about their secondary. So as long as they can stop the run, they should be fine. And I think they can get after JJ may like difficult on them. So yeah. And I think the Chargers can get after that secondary too, because I feel like Lad McConkey could be a problem. So yeah, I think the game will be close, but I'm taking the Chargers though because I feel like that Jim Harbaugh pretty much knows JJ McCarthy and all that because they both were at school together, were at college. So yeah, so I think the Chargers will win that game in LA. The next game, Week 9 against Detroit Lions, I think the Lions will win this game because I just think the Lions, they'll lose to the Lions once in a while. I say the Lions will win because I feel like the Lions, have found a formula to at least attack the Vikings defense because they can throw the ball, but I don't on the Vikings, but I don't think they're gonna be able to run the ball as much. And also, the Lions defense has totally given the Vikings offense issues. I think the Lions, with their defense, I think they can get after JJ made life difficult on them, especially with a great pass rush. And they got good corners that can really man up against the Vikings receivers that could allow the Vikings, offensively to like run the ball, let J hold on to the ball for so long and all that. So yeah, to like put them in a lot of second, third, and longs, like yeah. So I think the Lions will win the first game. But week 10 against the Baltimore Ravens, this is a tricky game. This can go either way. Now I know most people are picking the Vikings to win because they think the Vikings, have their defense could totally have answers for Lamar and Derrick Henry. But at the same time, I think the game will be close. I can see Minnesota pulling off an upset, but for some reason, I think the Ravens are going to win. Now, here's why. I just really think that the Ravens, on defense, I feel like that, the Vikings defense is going to be a test for the Ravens offense because Lamar, is really good with his deep ball. And I feel like that, his default fall against, I feel like his deep ball against receivers might be too much because guys will start getting open like Zay Flowers, DeAndre Hopkins, Bateman, and Mark Andrews. So yeah, because I don't think you guys really have the corners to match up well with these guys. And I just really think that the Ravens defense is gonna find a way. Feel like it's gonna be way too much for JJ, and I feel like they can make life difficult on him. And also, the Ravens do have the corners to match up well with the Vikings receiving core. So as long as if their secondary doesn't give a big plays to those guys, they should be fine. So yeah, I think this game will be close, but I wouldn't rule out the Vikings winning. But I think the Ravens find a way to pull this one off. But the only way if Minnesota can like win this game is that if their defense can like if Brian Flores, finds a formula to like at least stop the run and contain Lamar Jackson. So yeah, because if they do these things, I think the Vikings will win. But ultimately, I think the Ravens will win because they just got the better quarterback and they're just a much more complete team. So yeah. Then week 11, they got to play at home against Chicago Bears. They'll split the season series, so I give Minnesota a win here because, Minnesota, I feel like they're going to have more to play for this game in the Bear because I feel like they might need to win more if they really want to go to the playoffs. So, yeah, especially Minnesota's at home. And I think Minnesota, I just feel like they're just the overall much more complete team. So, yeah. Then week 12 against the Green Bay Packers. I think they'll lose to the Packers once. So I'm giving them the Packers a win here because I think the Packers, they're at home. It could be cold there. The Packers do have a better quarterback, better coaching staff. They're at home. They're the more complete team, in my opinion. So, yeah, and I just really think that, Matt LaFleur will find a way to at least, like, get after Brian Flores and make them not be creative because I feel like if the Packers offensively, like, if they can find a way to get after that Vikings secondary, I think their offense will be up to task. So, yeah. So, I think the Packers will win that game at home. Then, week 13 against Seattle Seahawks. This is another game that can go either way. Now, last time these two teams played, I believe the Vikings did win that game. So, yeah. But this could be the Sam Darnold revenge game. But I'm going to go with Seattle here because I feel like Seattle, is just a tough place to play at, tough environment, like, tough for a rookie quarterback. Mike McDonald against a rookie quarterback, that's tough for him. And, yeah, I mean, Seattle, they have a great defense, but offensively, they're just not as good. Like, their offensive line's not good. Maybe the Vikings defense could totally get a pass rush on Darnold, make life difficult on him. The Seahawks do got a great defensive line which I think they can really give JJ some fits and make him uncomfortable. And their secondary is pretty decent. So as long as they don't really give up big plays to Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison, they should be fine. So yeah. And if the Seahawks offensively can find a way to get after that secondary of the Vikings, they should be good. So I think Seattle will win that game. Week 14 against the Washington Commanders. Obviously, this is another game that can go either way, but I am gonna lean towards the Vikings to win this game because I feel like coming off back-to-back losses, they should be fine. And I just think Brian Flores will have a recipe to at least like confuse Jaden Daniels and make like comfortable on them and all that. So yeah, because and also the Commanders, I just don't think they have much of a pass rush to at least like get after JJ and all that. So I find that the Vikings offense can at least control the lack of a pass rush, control the game, keep Jaden off the field. And I just think their offensive line can totally like play well against Commanders D line, which that puts their defense in a bad position. And that keeps the Commanders defense like on their toes. So I think the Vikings can run the ball a little bit on them and all that. So yeah. I think both these two teams are similar to each other, but I know the Commanders do have a better quarterback. But I just think the Vikings defense might be a little bit too much for Jaden Daniels. So yeah. I think the Vikings will win that game. Week 15, they play against the Dallas Cowboys. This is another game that can go either way. Now, I know most people are picking on the Vikings to win because the Vikings could be the much more complete team. But I'm probably going to go with the Cowboys here to win this game because I just think, the Cowboys offensively can really find a way to get after that secondary. And I feel like that, that CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens will probably be a problem for your secondary. And on the other side, I think, the Cowboys pass rush is really good. I think they can find a way to get after JJ and, make him uncomfortable, force some mistakes and some bad sacks, turnovers, and all that. And the Cowboys do have a great cornerback group, which I think they'll find a way to at least, like, hold Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison because as long as they don't really, if their secondary doesn't give a big play to those to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, they should be fine. So yeah, and also the Cowboys, they're at home, they're just a more complete team, and they have the better quarterback. So yeah, I think that's why I think the Cowboys will win. Next game, Week 16 against the New York Giants. This is a game where I think the Vikings could lose because playing New York is sometimes tricky, but it's all dependent on weather. But I still think the Vikings are going to win this game because the Vikings are just the more complete team, and they got the better, coaching staff. I don't know who's starting for the Giants. If it's going to be Russell Wilson, if it's going to be Jameis Winston or Jackson Dart. If it's Jameis Winston, I feel like that will be fluky. But if it's Jackson Dart, I mean, that's still 100% chance for a win for Minnesota. I mean, I wouldn't trust a rookie against Brian Flores in that defense. Like, yeah. Especially, the Giants don't have a great offensive line. I think that's where the Vikings defense line takes advantage. And I just don't think the Giants defense will have answers for Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison. So, yeah. So, basically, the Vikings do have a better old line, which I think, where I think JJ will have time to get his guys open and all that. So, yeah, I think the Vikings will win that game. Week 17 against Detroit Lions, I think they'll split with the Lions, so I give them a win right here. I mean, is Thursday on a short week. I mean, I think the Vikings will get their revenge on Detroit. I think their defense will do a better job, like getting after Jared Goff, make him uncomfortable, force some mistakes and all that. So, yeah, I think the Vikings will win this game because I feel like they really need this win more. They want to make it to the playoffs. So, yeah. And then Week 18 against the Packers, I go with the Packers, so I'm giving the Vikings a win right here because, The Vikings, I sweeping the Packers. The Packers are too talented for them. I don't see the Packers sweeping the Vikings. Um, Vi- Vikings could be too talented for them, but I think they'll win this game at home, so that way, if they really want to make the playoffs. So yeah, that's why I think the Vikings will win. So overall, uh, I have the Vikings going 9-8. Which that could be good enough to make the playoffs, but this is a team that could totally be outside looking in. So yeah. So basically, as you look at the Vikings schedule, it is tough, because they have to play the Bears twice. They have to play their own division. They have to play the Bears twice, the Packers twice, the Lions twice. They got to play like the Bengals, the Steelers, the Eagles, the Chargers, the Lions twice, the Ravens, the Packers twice, the Seahawks in Seattle, the Commanders, the Cowboys. Like this is gonna be a tough schedule. Like yeah, like I can see the Vikings at least being worse than 9-8. Like I don't expect them to do any better than 9-8 and all that, but yeah, but I can see them do worse than that. Like I can see like the Vikings losing one more game. Like I can see them lose to the Bengals. I can see them lose to the Falcons. I can see them lose shockingly to the Browns or the Eagles, or I could see them, yeah, I can see them lose shockingly to the Giants. But there are some other winnable games I can see. I think that I can see them at least beating the Ravens. I can see them beating the Cowboys. I can see them beating Seattle. I can see them beating the Chargers. I can see them beating the Steelers if Aaron Rodgers is there. Like, or I can see them sweeping the Bears. Like, yeah, I feel like 9-8 sounds about right for the Vikings. I think they'll go somewhere from like 9 to. I think they'll go somewhere from like uh from like 7 to 10 wins this year. I think 7 to 9 wins this year is about right. I'm going with 9 because they have too much of a great defense led by Brian Flores. He's too good of a defensive coach, and I think I still have questions about JJ McCarthy because I don't know what he's gonna look like. I don't really know if he's gonna be the guy. Like, could if he proves to me that he can at least be a true starter quarterback. Like, if he proves me wrong, then I think he could be a stud at quarterback. Now the question is, will he ever be a stud at quarterback? We don't really know because if he starts to play really well in some of the games, then he could totally be a stud and be comeback player of the year. So yeah, so basically, I love the coaching staff and love the offensive line is much improved. So yeah, so I think 9-8 sounds about right for the Vikings. So yeah, so let me know in the comments section below what you guys think. Um, it's Emmanuel Jones from the Big Fan. Feel free to like and subscribe to my channel. You can see more of my NFL rec prediction playlist as well. So yeah, well, this is Emmanuel Jones from Big Fan. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys later. Peace.